Welcome back. In case you're just joining us, it's time for our conversation. Femi Taiwo, the Executive Director at Leap Africa, is joining me right now from Lagos. Hello, Femi. Good to see you again. How are you?
Good, very good, very good.
Okay, I did say at the beginning of the program that we're starting our conversation today. International Youth Day will be commemorated tomorrow around the world. The theme is youth engagement for global action. Let me start by asking, because I'm always asking that question, who is a youth in Nigeria? Because the term youth in Nigeria seems to have a different meaning or a different age bracket. You will see a man of 50, a man of 60, a man of 45, even a man of 40 saying, I'm a youth. And they are heads of youth organizations, Nigerian Youth Chamber, and when he tells you his age, he's 45 or 50. Anyway, let me hold my fire. Femi, who is a youth?
Okay, so thank you so much, Nancy, for the opportunity to be here. I think I should lend my voice with everybody to say happy belated birthday again, and for celebrating 20 years on TV.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So according to the Nigerian youth policy, the new Nigerian youth policy, the official youth age in Nigeria right now is from the age 14 to 29. Before, Nigeria recognized young people as 18 to 35. But last year, a new national youth policy was developed and was released by the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports. And that allocates young people to be age 14 to 29. But the argument is actually, it's unique. In different countries, there are different ratings. UN notes young people as 14 to 25. But in Nigeria, where we are, it's 14 to 29.
It's 14 to 29. Quite interesting, because the UN, I think, the UN is 15 to 25, isn't it?
Yeah, to 25, yes.
Yes. So should that be an average age? But let's take for Nigeria, 14 to 29. So what happens to all those? And I'm sorry, it's men that are parading themselves as youth leaders, aged more than 29 years. Yes, because if we need to begin to have a good conversation about having policies that are inclusive for young people and for youths, it should start from there, really. We should begin to frown at people parading themselves as youths when they are really not youths. They are mature, very way mature adults. Because these are people that pencil down those policies. They may not know how a young person or how a youth feels.
Yeah, very true, Nancy. Very, very true. I mean, you find it everywhere, in the political scene, in the faith-based organizations, old people, identifying as youth. And they are not creating space for the actual young people, to participate in policy, in programming, in decisions that affect them and affect their future. And it's high time we actually, allow young people a seat at every table. I mean, because they literally own the nation. They own the now and they own the future. And it's important that they actively participate and are actively engaged in influencing the decisions, the policies, the laws, the processes that would affect their lives, affect their livelihoods, affect their productivity, and their ability to fulfill their potential.
How important is the theme of this year, which will be commemorated tomorrow, youth engagement for global action, especially as the whole world is engulfed with COVID-19 pandemic?
Okay, so the theme for this year's UN International Youth Day is youth engagement for global action. And it's actually a very relevant theme, because it's the whole idea of this year's focus is to spotlight and highlight the need to engage young people at the local, national, and global level of policy making and decision making. It's also spotlighting the value young people have already brought in the areas where they've been given spaces, in the areas where they've been given, where society has allowed their agency and their voice to thrive. So it's a very relevant topic, because COVID-19 has thrown the world upside down like we know it, and has reminded us that life is passing, and that the future is here. I mean, we've seen a lot of adoption of technology. Who better to lead us? Who better to champion the cause into the future than young people who are even more digitally savvy, who are even more exposed and more to the complexities of this situation. COVID-19 has taught us that we need to rethink how we educate people. Guess what? Young people are the ones who need the education. So young people should be the one designing the educational policy, or should be actively engaged in designing the educational policy. COVID-19 has told us we have to rethink commerce and rethink how work will be done and the type of jobs and work that will be available. Guess what? The major set of people who are of working age are young people. So this whole situation really just spotlights the need to engage young people even more so, I would say, Nancy.
What is the role of especially youth organizers, youth organizations to galvanize young people at this time, people like you, so that we can get that engagement which we want and that action which we so desire? If you take a look at, I like what you said in terms of young people should be designing the educational policy right now of the nation, because even the pandemic has brought this to our face. You take a look at Nigeria 2050 agenda, which will replace the ERGP, for example, and it's our agenda, I think, for the next 30 years. The question is, who are those that should be designing that agenda now for 2050? Is it the same set of leaders that by 2050, if those set of leaders are alive, they are like around 90 years old? You understand what I'm saying? They are around like 70, 80, 90 years old. Even a young person of today that designs a policy, perhaps around 20, in the next 30 years, that person is about 50. So how much of, yes, I'm stating the scenario so that we will understand the import of what we're doing, but because it seems we're just doing it anyhow. Let's just get out something for people to say we're doing something.
So Nancy, very, very relevant question. Very relevant question. I like the way you mentioned 2050. So let's talk a bit about 2050 before I go deeper into the question. Nigeria right now is the seventh largest, most populous nation rather in the world. And by 2050, we're estimated, if we continue at this growth projection, we are going to be the third largest nation in the world. Right now, our median age is 18, so 50% of our population are below the age of 18. By 2050, we would have one of the largest youth populations in the world. We will be the major contributor of young people to the world and to Africa even, right? At almost between 400 to 450 million Nigerians. The median age will be around 22, 23, thereabouts, still young people. Now, we are seeing a lot of young people doing amazing things in the private sector and in the social sector. I mean, young people are leading in private sector. Think about what is going on in the tech revolution, whether edutech, whether fintech, whether agri-tech. Think about the revolutions going on in civil society with organizations like Slum to School Africa, or Teach for Nigeria, or Leap Africa, or Yaga. These are driven by young people. But you see, one place where the youth capital is important is in the political space. So we are not really seeing the impact of young people as we can see it because of the power that the political space wields, or the power that the public sector wields. If we want to transform this nation, if we want to help this nation to fulfill its potential, if we want to help this continent to fulfill its potential, we have to deploy this youth capital into the public sector significantly. And, that's actually the space that we actually even need to pay attention to more. And the theme for the International Youth Day is actually spotlighting the need, not just to engage young people as part-time stakeholders, to just come and sit down in a town hall, but for them to for you to leave the steering at their hands and you sit at the back seat and leave them to take this vehicle to a destination of prosperity and peace, right? So how are we organizing? That was your question. How are we organizing? There's been very good organization and co-creation and collaboration in the private sector. I mean, think about what we now refer to as the Yabakon. The tech community is very strong. Young people are enabling themselves, self-organizing, building ecosystems to support themselves. the same thing that is going on in the social sector is just starting in trickles in the political space. I mean, we are grateful for the Not Too Young to Run movement that at least caught some wins for us recently. But that political, public sector and political organizing of young people is just at the infancy. And it's something that we need those who have the heart of the nation at heart, and even the leaders of today in whatever sphere, whether in local governance, in state governance, or at the federal level, or in any of the arms of government, you are doing yourself a good job. You are doing yourself a disservice, rather, if you do not engage young people, right? You have this bundle of talent, this bundle of energy, this bundle of creativity. It's high time you tap it and tap them. Play the role of a coach, play the role of a mentor, and allow them. Play the role of a sponsor and allow them, right? But for we young people, I think we are tired. We are tired of just sitting back. So we are seeing people organizing more, and we're going to see more strategic more strategic and systemic organizing. I mean, it's going to trickle first from the private and social sector and filter into the political space. But the urgency for that, the need for that, is even more relevant now because of the COVID-19 situation.
Hello YouTubers, welcome to Moneyline with Nancy TV YouTube channel. This is where we provide you with instructive business directions, processes, and guidance to help you assess the right resources to fund your businesses to withstand every form of internal and external shock. You will find here awesome informative videos on business, entrepreneurship, and lifestyle just to help you make informed business and financial decisions. Punch the subscribe button and let us drive you through the world of business. Please follow all our social media platforms on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and follow us for latest updates on our website. Now, we should also talk about the young people and if they are indeed ready to take charge. I'm talking of Nigerian youths now. Majority of Nigerian youths are out of work. Some have not gone to school. Like how it's not compulsory for one to even go to university. But Nigeria should have a system whereby if you finish primary school or you don't want to further more, there's no means, or even if you finish secondary school, you can still earn a living. Are young people ready? The behavior, the culture of young people now, I'm talking of majority of young people in Nigeria, do you think that young people are ready to even begin that conversation, to connect themselves, to engage themselves, and say that perhaps enough is enough, we want a better Nigeria for us, and begin to demand that change, you know, that they seek, and not perhaps distracted by the ephemeral things, temporal things that will just like for entertainment or something, and not coming into concrete and strategic conversations that will move us to the next level.
Yeah, Nancy, I would say yes and no. It depends on where you sit and where you're looking at and what you're looking at. You see, young people or youth is not an homogeneous group. We know, even though we've clustered them within a certain age group, they're in different areas and different phases. And yes, you're very correct. You described some as, you described a critical mass who are unemployed or underemployed. You described a critical mass who lack the skill set. But honestly, there is also a critical mass on ground here in the nation and even out there in diaspora who are equipped, inspired, motivated, and ready, and are already actively doing it in their spaces. So it depends on where we look at, actually. Now, ultimately, it's not majority that will transform Nigeria. It's a critical mass, a very certain number. And I think we have that number. I think the issue is that there's still a bit of fragmentation, you know, and people working in silos, right? So whether it's in the third sector, in social space, in the civil society space, there's still a bit of fragmentation because, so I think one of the things we are actively trying to do more of, you know, is to work together, bring ourselves together, because together we can achieve more. Together our voice will be louder. together we are able to pull more weight, pull more resources, and get things done. So there are people that are ready. I mean, honestly, I can call hundreds of young people, on thousands of young people, hundreds of youth organizations, who are forward thinking, who are excellent and extraordinary and have integrity, right? So I think they are ready now. But to the other category of youth who might be in one form of delinquency, or on the they are not realizing their potential, we as a society have to invest in them. We have to invest in them, because we can only get what we put in. We can only get what we put in as a society to our young people. The values we want them to represent, we have to give it to them. We have to model it. The skills we want them to show off in the marketplace, we have to equip them and give them the opportunity to learn, right? So if you ask me, we actually have to pay serious attention to human capital, which means we have to pay serious attention to education. You described secondary education, very, very important one. In Leap Africa, for instance, one of the things we've decided to commit ourselves to in this decade is to make secondary education work for young people. And why? Because, like you said, the statistics show that only 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 get to go to university. The critical mass of young people, in fact, when you disaggregate the unemployed and the underemployed, you find that the critical mass have only secondary education as the highest form of education. But the question is the secondary education they receive, the education they received, did it prepare them with the life skills, the skills, the competencies, the employability skills, the entrepreneurial skills, the commercial awareness required to thrive post-secondary school? Because secondary school is a major transition point for them. So this is why we have to pay attention to young people, honestly, and allow young people and enable young people, because they are the ones experiencing this. They are the ones, one of the reasons why we don't even feel they are ready is because we're not engaging them enough. We're not hearing them. We're not listening to them, right? Then we don't even understand that there's a gold mine in them that we need to harness and that we need to enable.
Femi, do you think that the government, not just the central, federal, central, state and local government, do you think that authorities across board, I'm not even talking of this administration because it's been a long time coming, do you think these authorities are paying attention to what young people need? Inclusivity. I just said something earlier, because when I saw the Nigeria 2050, for example, the government is mulling that. I will just say, who are those that are doing this thing right now? How many young people are there? If you take a median age of people that are creating those policies now, for Nigeria in 2050, they will be like 50, 60, 70 years old. By 2050, they are not there. By God's grace that you will still be alive by 2050 to see the outcome of what you have done. Let alone what the COVID-19 pandemic is also making us, staring us in the face, and the challenges that we need to be faster than our shadows at this point. So do you think that we are taking this youth engagement, youth inclusion seriously? And when I mean inclusion, I don't mean those of us that are able bodies, people that are visually impaired, people that are on wheelchairs, people that are deaf, people that are dumb, people that, across board in all the states of Nigeria.
Nancy, unfortunately, that answer would be not really. Not really. That's the honest answer. There's some form of engagement, some form of inclusion and inclusivity, but it's. I mean, you've described it from many angles. Because when we go to young people are of two genders. Are we even engaging both genders adequately? Right? Before we go to people living with disabilities, or we go to all other types of diversity, in our nation, right? So I think I think the answer is that to take a step back and tell ourselves the truth, right? And we need to, at all levels, like you described, even make sure that we actively engage young people. And government should not be waiting for young people to come to them. Leaders are called to serve. Leaders are called, to the people. So you go to the people. You go and engage the people. You actively engage the people. Make it a core part of your strategy, a core part of your ways of working, right? Not the one that is young people trying to book you into meetings or trying to get you there, right? So I mean, there's a bit of engagement going on, and kudos to everyone doing that at all levels. I think we can just do more. We all can do more. There's always room for improvement, right? And that's the focus of this International Youth Day. That how can we accelerate? You see, honestly, and I think I should say this here, honestly, there is no greater joy than having a better society. I don't know why everyone has not really gotten that. There's no greater joy than having schools that work, or having young people have jobs, or decent and fulfilling work, or having roads that work for the cars and work for the people riding on them. There's no greater joy than having, the system work. I mean, we've seen in COVID-19 that people are just passing on. The question is, why are people not waking up to the reality of legacy? Life is passing. Why don't you just use it to serve? Why don't you use it to make life be better for every other person? Right?
Yeah.
That should be the focus. Right, Nancy?
Okay. Final question. How should the business environment be enhanced to work more effectively for perhaps young-owned businesses? And when I mean young-owned, it's not just only for men, for women too. The president just signed the new KAMA bill into law just a few days ago. Kudos to that, because that's like 30 years coming. You also said something earlier. We're seeing a lot of young people in the tech spaces and all of that. I would imagine that the ease of doing business should be easy for those in the tech spaces. The new KAMA law has come out now, so you can register a company even as is just one person without needing. I'll come to that in a bit later. How should the government deliberately put the environment, that's business environment, to work more effectively to boost young people? Because if you take a look at young people or their businesses, if we have a better working business environment, that we have infrastructure, human capital, education, health, and what have you, businesses will also start growing. Some of these young people will start making monies in millions of dollars. And perhaps in years to come, we'll begin to dictate who stays in Aso Rock. Just like you're seeing even in the United States that some of the private sector people also have a say because they have deep pockets.
Very, very good question, Nancy. I have to acknowledge progress. Progress is good, right? So there's been improvement, a little bit of improvement, but we're not there yet. We still have light years, in terms of making the business environment better for youth-led businesses. I mean, I'm saying this because I have a couple of friends. There's been a lot of conversations in recent weeks, and very practical case studies of very solid youth businesses that have been thriving here in Lagos, for instance, and all manner of policies and cannibalization, I would say, is happening from the business environment. So we're seeing all manner of new policies that is geared towards just raising revenue, that I would say is not entirely so sensitive to young people and their plight, and even to the times. In the quest to raise revenue and improve the revenue for government, we should not stifle and even choke youth-led businesses with all manner of policies, especially because we've not even created the best infrastructure, and we've not even created the most enabling environment. Now, if you look at most of the youth enterprises that are thriving, it's mostly foreign capital. So when I'm even speaking about the business environment working for young people, I'm not talking just about government alone. I think private sector Nigeria, or the organized private sector Nigeria, and the organized private wealth, if I may say, can invest more in youth and invest more. Most of the capital driving these things, driving youth enterprises in Nigeria, a good number of them are from outside the country, right? But there's a lot of wealth in this country that can actually go into the hands of very solid young people driving solid businesses that would drive prosperity for more young people and for the society at large. So I think my call is this, since this is the last question, and this is what we preach in Leap Africa. All of us have a responsibility, everyone, private individuals, private sector, third sector, the government, obviously. Leadership can happen and should happen at all levels, right? It's not about titles, it's about the value that you add. It's not about the positions you occupy, the contributions. It's about the contributions you make. The summary of leadership is service. And all of us can serve. You are serving in your own way, Nancy, right now. Your media organization is serving in their own way right now. How can we serve more strategically, more systematically to address our systemic problems? How can we serve more collaboratively? How can we serve with integrity more? I think those are the real conversations. Also,
And that's a fine place to leave it. How can we serve more? Perhaps the mantra will be, how can I serve you? Or how better can I serve you? Has my service been good? How better can I serve you? Thank you very much, Femi, for speaking with me today. Happy International Youth Days tomorrow. I've started my conversation today. Let's see how it goes.
You're no longer a youth.
No, I'm not, oh. I'm not. All right. Thank you very much, Femi. All right, I've been speaking with Femi Taiwo, who is the executive director at Leap Africa. Let's quickly take a break. When we come back, the managing director at Carry Asset Management will be joining me. We'll be looking at the newcomer bill that was signed by Mr. President just a few days ago and what it means for your business. We'll be right back.
Before pre-COVID, we were talking about approaching 100 million poor people in this country. You can see how that has now become much worse. If we take the same data, I'm sure we're probably now perhaps over half of Nigerians are very, very poor. What do you do with those people? I think the critical thing is for government to realign its investment and really focus on human capital development. The training of Nigerians and making sure they are in good health allows us to have quality human capital, which could actually change what is a vicious cycle, as we presently see, into a virtuous cycle. The biggest of export is human capital. If you look at the remittances coming from Nigerians in diaspora, if you look at the number of Nigerians that are moving abroad every year to go to a graduate education or just going for greener pastures, you can then see that momentum continues unrelenting. Today with COVID-19, you see now that remote working has taken has become a major phenomenon. Rather than trying to export Nigerians abroad to go and do the work and remit money home, there's an opportunity today with technology for the government, with focused private sector encouragement, to get Nigerians to stay home and become well-trained and be able to provide the services to foreign companies right from here overseas.